All right, in the last video we had showed you how to attach the power supply to the home plug adapter using the 3.3 volt supply from the Cape. Where I left off is I hadn't yet shrunk tubing, so I'm just going to do that really quick. And then the rest of this video will be showing you how to attach the tether to the tether input of the home plug adapter. So I got this little wireless butane powered heat gun, which works pretty well for this stuff. And it's pretty easy to just shrink the tubing that way. The reason I'm going to the effort of showing you this as opposed to just moving to the next step is because I wanted to show you how to bend the system so that you can make sure it has enough room. I just stepped away from the camera for a moment to get some pliers. The important thing is that you don't put too much strain on these leads coming out of the home plug adapter. So what I'm doing is just strain relieving with my Leatherman here and then bending them over. It looks like they're going to do that on their own. It's really just wire that I'm bending, no metal. And that's what we want to see. That's why we cut it down earlier. The next step is to attach the tether. It's going to be basically the same thing as how we attach the power supply. First step is to get the wire to the right length, and that's done just by kind of flipping it over, and I can see that this should be long enough. I could probably do it with the length it's at, but just for fun I'm going to make it slightly shorter. I think that's about the right length. And then using my auto stripper, I can pull a little bit of the insulation off. And in this case, it's probably about maybe a centimeter that I'm pulling off, a little less than a centimeter. Like that, that's probably good enough, maybe a little bit more. As always, I like to tin my wire. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of solder here. Now remember, whenever I solder, that tends to make trains come by. So in a moment you'll hear a train passing us. That's just how we roll here at OpenRV headquarters. I'm also going to tin the pins coming out on the home plug adapter, these headers. It just makes it so everything's easier to solder later on. And as I mentioned in the last video, the thing that I always forget, especially because I'm distracted by trains passing, is to make shrink tubing that can insulate this. I'm going to cut that as this train goes by. Alright. So now I'm just going to put this shrink tubing on. I'm untwisting this wire sufficiently so that the shrink tubing won't shrink from the heat of the solder when I solder it. Although I do kind of like to keep this wire twisted if possible. So all this is pretty straightforward. It doesn't matter, this is probably the most important statement of this video, it doesn't matter what polarity you attach this on. The way that the home plug protocol works is it's a differential pair. So I'm putting the black wire on the outside, it could be the red wire on the outside, it really doesn't matter. And let's see, my hand's kind of blocking the view, but you can see what I'm doing. And as always, inspect your solder joints. Don't just solder it and assume it's good, make sure that it looks good. This one's a little bit fat, the electrical connection's good, so as long as my shrink tubing will fit over it, then we're okay. And it looks like it does. So now we've got that. One thing I forgot to do, and I could have done this, is to trim this header down a little bit as well, like we did in the last one. We just made it a little bit shorter so the wires will bend over easier, but it was pretty good as it was, so I'm just gonna go ahead and shrink tube it as is. But you can cut them down to about the same length as the other. And then just feeling it, it looks like I might want to bend it a little bit. So you can use pliers as strain relief and then just kind of bend them to the side. Actually, it's not working very well here. I can feel that these pins are going to want to hold. You know, it'll probably be all right. If you get a chance though, you might want to shorten these before soldering them a little bit. So there you have it. This goes on to that. This will be pushed down on top of the bugle bone, and then we'll be ready to start mounting everything.